This exercise is meant to accompany exercise 4 in part 1 of the Graphite module, creating a tonal strip. As part of this exercise, I've drawn a series of squares and a strip ranging from a 2H to a 5B and all the grades of pencil in between. I'm using a Derwent graphic pencil today. You can also use Faber-Castell 9000, which is probably my preferred one, but I don't have a full set today, so I'm using this. You should always use the same type of pencil when creating a tonal strip, because there are variations between different makes of pencils. Some are darker than others. So you need a set of pencils from 2H. You can work as soft as you want. You can go up to 8B if you want. You won't generally use anything harder than a 2H, so that's where I'm starting from. And you can see I've already completed one of the squares here. The aim of this exercise is to get the square as smooth and flat as possible. So the method that I use to do it is called continuous tone. And I'm going to start with the next grade of pencil, which is an H. Now you don't have to sharpen your pencils as sharp as I've done, but I like to have them with a long point so that I can don't have to sharpen them all the time, and I use a sanding block just to take the ends down to sharpen it to a point. Before you start, just take any rough bits of graphite from the end, because sometimes you get just a blob. The most likely place to get a darker area when starting a tonal square is at the point where you first touch the paper. Now the technique I'm going to use, as I say, is continuous tone, and to do that you start at the right hand side top. You can start either side if you want, but I start at the right. So starting at the top, use small elliptical movements with your pencil. And you place very little pressure on the paper. Don't worry if you need to go over parts again, it's quite okay. But work from right to left, or left to right, whichever you prefer, down the square. The idea behind a tonal strip is it identifies the tone between different grades of pencil. If you need to go darker with an area, you use a different grade of pencil. You don't press on. As you can see, I'm using these small ellipses as I work my way down the square. I've done mine 2 centimetres square, but you can do yours 1 centimetre. I've just done it so you can see it. And you can see the angle that I'm using is about 45 degrees. Sometimes helps if you make that, as you're working down the square, a little bit more jagged. What you don't want to have is a line. As I said, there's very little weight. There's no pressure on the paper at all, really. It's just the pencil's doing all the work. And the weight's really in your hand of it. So what you'll end up with is a strip which becomes progressively darker from the hardest pencil to the softest pencil. As the pencils get softer, as you move along, the effect becomes grainier. So don't worry if you need to go back over it. Work your way down the square first and then decide whether you've got any lighter or darker areas. You can go over it twice if you want to, if it's not dark enough. Sometimes people do this and they find that they haven't got the amount of pressure right. It's a very light amount of pressure. But sometimes people do it too light and they can't see any difference between the grades of the pencil. And once you've completed this strip, you can use it for reference, so you keep it in your sketchbook or wherever, or just have it pinned to your drawing board, and you can use it to identify which pencils you need to use in a drawing. So the most likely place to get a darker bit is where you first touch the paper. So you're not taking the pencil away from the paper at all, it stays continuously on the paper using this continuous elliptical movement. You can also use mechanical pencils if you like them. I sometimes use them for drawing lines. It just means you have to keep changing the leads unless you've got a full set of them. I'm going to go back over some areas which I feel a little bit patchy than they should be, just right up at the edge. Sometimes you will get some marks, and it's more to do with the paper than your technique. It picks up certain lines in the paper. You can see it doesn't matter how, if I was to press on that now, it won't go any darker. There's a maximum tonal value to each pencil grade. So going over it again, I'll smooth it. Once you get into the softer grades as well, you can go over them with a harder grade pencil when you're actually doing a drawing, in the process of the drawing. You can see there's a difference between the 2H and the H. So you can probably see now that I'm working my way across from, say, from the 2H, H, F, HB, B, and now I'm at the 2B stage, and I'll work up to 5B. And you can probably see that the squares are getting progressively darker as the pencils become softer. And so this strip will be useful for you to identify where and which pencil you need when you're doing a full tonal drawing. So I just basically continue with the same approach. We're using the continuous tone right across the full range. As the pencils get softer, they tend to become more grainy. I've done mine where they're joined together, the squares. You can separate them if you want it to. Just shows more of a gradation from light to dark. And when you come to do a full tonal drawing, you will work from light to dark, putting in the lightest shades first.